And we welcome you to the post All In edition of This Is Wrestling. It is Lee Versage along with Zach friggin' McGibbon and AEW's biggest show of the year, All In. And we have a ton to talk about. Always good to talk to you, Zach. We are getting to this quite quickly after the end of the pay-per-view. So excited to get our thoughts out and put some content out after All In. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, Lee. Yeah, it says pretty soon after when we're recording, and as you mentioned, a lot to talk about on this show, so I'm looking forward to it.
So on the preview show, we kind of bookended this card when it came to the two matches that I think were at least a feature for a lot of people. I'll be interested to see if you still think so at the end of the show. There were some surprises in this card. There was some really good wrestling in this card. There was some stuff I think we need to talk about during this card.
Yeah.
But all in all, I thought a pretty good performance here put on by AEW in regards to what they were trying to accomplish, how many people were there, the spotlight that was on, and so what they were able to do. So I figure that we'll do the same thing here. We'll start with one of the bookends, and then we'll get to all the stuff in the middle, and then we will, I think there's just so many interesting things from the main event that if we start with that, people are going to go, well, why should I bother to listen to the rest of it? And there's a lot to listen to. I can promise you that.
Oh,
so,
yes.
But let's bookend this when it comes to how we did it on the preview show. And how we did that was we began with the American Championship with Maxwell Jacob Friedman and Will Ospreay for the American Championship. And we'll talk about what the match was like, but I do want to talk about how AEW presented this match, Zach, from a build-up standpoint, and then into the entrances, into the ring announcements, and until the bell started. I thought AEW did a tremendous job. Just a really good build-up for, I can't even call it a secondary title. It's a tertiary title. It's a title that didn't mean as much as other titles within the company, but you had two wrestlers that mean a lot to the company, and sometimes the wrestlers can make the title. And I think in this case, that happened. I think the entrances were exquisite with the Assassin's Creed entrance for Will Ospreay. Took, I don't know, between the video package and him getting down to the ring, over 5 minutes. I would usually complain about that. I'm not a video game person or a movie person. I still thought this was one of the more incredible entrances that we have seen. And then MJF did not disappoint, coming down to the ring in all his American glory, with the title and streamers and his outfit. I thought this was a great build-up for a match that you were supposed to care about. And before the bell rang, I did care about. I loved the build-up, the entrances, and the prestige around this match.
Yeah, I was the same way too. I thought build up going into this. We talked about it on the preview. I could definitely say really enjoyed how they built this up, especially culminating with that angle at the last Dynamite. And the entrances, as you mentioned, were just fantastic. I actually sent off that Assassin's Creed entrance over to one of my brothers who's a big video game guy. And he's not a big Assassin's Creed guy, but even he was like, wow, this was a incredible entrance that they put together here for Will Ospreay. He's not a wrestling guy, doesn't know who a lot of the wrestling guys are, and so he was blown away by it. Yeah, they really made it feel like it was such a big deal that you had to get invested in this, and they did a really well done job on that. And of course, Ospreay just came across like one of the biggest stars in the world with the reaction he got at Wembley. So really well done from that aspect. And entrances like this, you know, we kind of bash the WWE for just how long they take to get to the ring, but stuff in spots like this where it can really enhance the feeling of a match, make it feel big, that's perfect. It's the issue is when it's in every match, when it feels like it's a 10-15 minute entrance. So really well done by AEW.
All right, let's get to the match. I thought the match was really good. I don't know, like, the problem with both of these guys, and you have to put MJF in the category now of every time he's in the ring with a great wrestler, he kind of supersedes the expectations, and you start talking about him like he's in that category, because I think he deserves to be in that category with the work that he has done. I loved this match. I didn't think it was to the level of other Will Ospreay matches that I've seen. But when I say that, I talk about some of the top matches that I have ever seen. So it's a very, very high bar when it comes to this. So Will Ospreay does defeat MJF and gets back the international championship after the American championship was presented. He's like, no. And then Christopher Daniels comes in the ring and presents him with the international championship that he gets back. I think you could tell what a big moment it was for Will Ospreay. I thought this match was really good. It's just the bar with Ospreay and other opponents is so high that I just thought it was a titch below that. But he does, as predicted by, I think, a lot of people, including me, I'm sure including you too, he does hit the Tiger Driver for the win. And I think we don't have to go through some of the stuff that you don't like when it comes to he's afraid to use the move. He's afraid to do it. And then I'm super interested in your thoughts that we do get a match between two of the greatest. And look, I think, to be fair, it might not be to the same level, but I'm going to ask you at the end what the two best matches on the card were, and I know what you're going to say, and then I'm going to tell you that they both had interference. And it's like, okay, you can't criticize the WWE entirely for all the interferences, 6 of 7 on the SummerSlam card, without at least talking about the interference. But we do get, and I understand, like, I feel conflicted, so I want to talk it out with you.
Okay.
The Daniel Garcia participation as a name that, yes, AEW fans know, yes, trying to push a younger talent into a main event scene, yes, the possibility of him re-signing is also big and wanting to put him in a big spot. I get trying to mix the young with the more veteran, I'll call them, because MJF certainly isn't old, and neither is Will Ospreay, but the more veteran, trying to push kind of a mid-card talent into that in the middle of the biggest show for all of those guys, including Will Ospreay. I don't know if it took away from the match for me, but it certainly was there. And I thought that this was a really, really good match with a lot of emotion put to it. And then you saw the ending with the Tiger Driver, and Will Ospreay wins, and certainly emotional after the win. So this had a lot of things that I loved about professional wrestling. If I were rating the actual match, it'd probably be a notch below other performances by Will Ospreay.
Yeah, I echo a lot of those same sentiments. I thought the match that they had on Dynamite a while back was better than this match, but this match was still very good. Will Ospreay's lower quality matches in his career are a lot of people's highs. So obviously, when you have that high of a bar, when you have a match like this, you think, oh, like it was very good. And again, I thought this was a very good match. I'm glad that there looks to be moving on from this Tiger Driver thing about hitting the move. I've said on this show how I firmly believe you just hit the damn move and move on with it. But the way things have kind of evolved with wrestling right now is to turn it into a story element. But I thought the buildup of this was great. I thought the spot with Ospreay hitting the cameraman with the back elbow and knocking him out brought some intrigue into the match. And I thought it was, again, a really, really good match. And when you mentioned the Daniel Garcia interference stuff, and I guess that also will tie into the main event, which we'll talk about later. A lot of my thoughts on that was it was definitely towing the line. And it was definitely in the back of my head of where it would go. But it really wasn't as in your face, if that makes any sense, as what you would typically see on the other side with them doing the interference and making that the whole story. They definitely made the wrestling match the majority of the story and the angle supporting the wrestling as opposed to the angle being the wrestling story, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
So I wasn't bothered by it, but it's one of those things where it's like it toes a line where you don't want to go overboard and then it becomes the whole deal. Like Garcia coming in to take out MJF and to get involved in the match makes a lot of sense. But I didn't think that when you left the match, that was the central focus. I think that was a part of the match and you're like, okay, it looks like we know where MJF's next path is going to be with Daniel Garcia. I still felt the central focus was Ospreay getting his big quote unquote Wembley moment in front of that big crowd, finally hitting the Tiger Driver. And I think that's going to be the lasting memory of this as opposed to the angle itself kind of being the lasting memory. So it was definitely towing the line, and we'll talk about it in the other match as well, but it didn't bother me as much as it would because I didn't feel like it was the central focus at the end of the match.
No, and I think that's very fair to say because I wasn't bothered by it either. But you do have to point out the fact that in the two biggest matches, there was some interference in those matches. And while I agree with you that you can't take every interference and just blanket it like it's the same. I think you broke that down very well, where sometimes I think the frustration with the interference is it becomes the entirety of what is going on, as opposed to just a simple 5% addition to what is going on.
Right.
But if I were to tell you 6 months ago or 5 months ago, whenever it is that Will Ospreay beat Bryan Danielson at Dynasty, that Will Ospreay was going to have his all-in Wembley moment, winning back a major title, and Daniel Garcia was going to be involved, you'd be like, what? I probably don't need that. So again, I just think it's interesting to point out the line, as you said, towing a line of elevating other people. And I think they've done that. They've tried certainly to do it with Jack Perry. They've tried to do it with some other talents. It's like, what can we do to put these talents in more major storylines? And I think that's a good thing. I think some of the things that happen not only in wrestling companies but in business and worldwide is that the old people or the vets think that they know everything, and then they try and hold their spot. And I take the task, like, I think Hulk Hogan's one of the worst ever in the history of the business for holding people down.
Yep. And
I think if you look at the top 10 of all time, all of them, and even people I like Ric Flair, or, I mean, I certainly enjoyed Shawn Michaels' time in the 90s when I was watching. but all of them held people down to keep their own spot. It's hard to find someone that didn't do that to some degree, or stories that are out there. But so I like it when they do elevate. It's just a question of when is the proper time, and is during Will Ospreay's big moment at Wembley Stadium, is that the time for Daniel Garcia to be able to do it? Or would it be when MJF is mad after he lost the title and he's trying to get the title back, and then you see Daniel Garcia, whether that's, you know, at All Out or next week on Dynamite or at some other point, could you have done Daniel Garcia in the same vein, just not at the big, huge moment? That's all. I think it's just a question worth pondering. But it didn't bother me watching the match. And I tell you, man, I mean, Will Ospreay has done to me, a really, really good job at making himself human and making himself relatable to a lot of people around the world. And I think that's outside of his ring technician skills and how great he is as an in-ring wrestler. Debates about, you know, whether you think he is or not, to not have him in the discussion would be ludicrous.
Of course.
So it's fine if you don't think that he is, but if there's a top 5 best wrestlers in the ring in the world, Will Ospreay's name has to be there, whether he's 1, 2, or 3, or wherever you think that he is. But there's always another part of that. And I think, so next in line, and not to get too far off topic, next in line for me in that category is probably Zack Sabre Jr. The guy is an incredible wrestler in the ring. I don't know that he has a ton of personality right now. Can he get to that next level? We haven't even talked about the fact, I mean, we won't in this episode, but we will in future episodes, that he won the G1.
Yep.
That he's going to do something different and not wait until the Tokyo Dome for his shot. He's going to take his shot sooner. And he's already declared that when he wins in his shot, he's going to defend the title before the Tokyo Dome in England. And so that's well off the path of where New Japan and I think what they think of Zack Sabre Jr.
Yep.
But if you watch Zack Sabre Jr., he's the next guy that you go, okay, every time this guy comes to the ring, I just love the guy. Like it's remarkable to watch, but he probably needs a little bit of personality. And I think Will Ospreay's done a really good job at being a human being. And whether I like the spot about the camera guy or the ring attendant, or it's like, okay, in your big spot, you're going to worry about some dude laying on the floor, but it makes him human. Yep. It makes him relatable. And I think a lot of the videos that he puts out, I think a lot of people connect with the guy. And when you can connect with one of the greatest in-ring performers, you've hit yourself a home run. And kind of came out of this match thinking that wherever this goes, the guy's a home run. And I think putting people in those positions is fantastic. And I think Will Ospreay deserves it. And I think AEW's done a good job at cultivating that, even though I didn't necessarily agree with all of the buildup since he beat Bryan Danielson. They kind of got to where I didn't love all of the places that they went, from beating Bryan Danielson to all of a sudden now he's in Roderick Strong and the international title, and what's he doing? And he's losing. And it's like, okay, but they got to me where they needed to get to for this particular show.
Yeah.
All right, you know what? I'm not going to be able to contain myself. So I am going to have to go to another match here that I have a lot of thoughts about. And I'm going to tell you, Zach, this is not recency bias, from the people that were involved to the type of match to the winner of the match, there is no question that this is my favorite gauntlet match that I have ever watched in my lifetime.
Wow.
And it's not close. So I just, there aren't too many gauntlet matches that I am not bored to tears with halfway through. And please, please, please let it end. Like, just get to the end of this match. And that's how I feel about a lot of gauntlets. I feel like we see them on a lot of shows on television, whether it's either company when they're overseas and then they need to put on long shows, but the wrestlers, they only have half of their roster. And they're kind of like, well, like, all right, well, this is kind of what we got. So we'll just throw out these people and we'll make it an hour and a half match of our 3-hour show. And I'm not a big fan. But from the beginning of this match and the gauntlet match with the stipulation of someone getting a world title match at there, it's basically money in the bank whenever they want to. The performers in this one, if I had to ask you, because I'll tell you that the last performer in the ring was only an addition to a storyline, nothing more, nothing less.
Mm-hmm.
There were 12 people in this match. It could have gone up to 21. And at some point I was going, we're not going to see Evil Uno, because if we see Evil Uno, even though he was announced for this match, if we see him, it is going to take away from everything that is going on.
Yes.
This is the greatest list of performers in a gauntlet match that I have ever seen. I was on the edge of my seat, and there are not too many names in this that I don't want to see for a very long time. And it kind of made sense. It wasn't an absolute train wreck, and just so many great moments. So, listing off the people that were in the gauntlet match, we knew that Orange Cassidy was going to be number one, and then out comes Kazuchika Okada to an incredible ovation, giving Zach maybe the only time that people go, yeah, Zach was probably right on this ever in the history of this show when he said that Kazuchika Okada should be involved in a one-on-one match. But the ovation for Okada was incredible. It should have been, and it was. So he comes out. Unfortunately, you only got about a minute 10 of him and Cassidy wrestling before the third entrance out. And look who it is. It's Nigel McGuinness. And an insane reaction for Nigel McGuinness as he comes out to the ring, followed by Kyle O'Reilly, Zack Sabre Jr., Roderick Strong, Mark Briscoe, Hangman Page, Jeff Jarrett, a debuting Ricochet, Christian Cage, who previously had wrestled earlier on in the show, which we'll get to, and Luchasaurus. I thought his name was Killswitch. I guess he's gone back to Luchasaurus. I don't really know, but he was also involved in the storyline and not one of the names that you'd go, oh, okay, this is a performer on his own. I just have never witnessed or watched a gauntlet match that I was this invested in from the beginning until the end. And almost every performer that came out were like, yep, I'm kind of excited to see that person. Maybe not Jeff Jarrett, but I understand why he's there. But almost everyone else, I'm like, yep. And I felt like a and the group that we were with kind of felt like a Ring of Honor show. But there's just so many highlights from this.
Yes.
And I think a surprise winner, but nobody was standing and cheering and pumping his fist more than me. Nobody.
I was wondering.
I was jacked up. Out of all of those names, you could have told me that most of them would have won, and I would have been okay with it. But my man, Christian Cage, coming in and winning this was the cherry on top, icing on the cake for me, because I loved this match. And then even more so that with all of the talent in the ring, Christian Cage ends up the winner. Like, I'm here for this. I am absolutely here for this. I just thought that this was incredible, and I'm sure there's a lot of talking points for you on this match as well.
Oh, yes. I was wondering when Christian Cage won what that noise I heard in the distance was.
Yeah, that was me from about 2.5 hours away.
I figured it was. I loved this match. I'm glad you love this match, because I thought, as you laid out, the way that they had the entrance going, and, Nigel McGuinness coming out was a complete surprise to me. Did not think he would come out in the gauntlet here. Was a little bit of a tip off to what could potentially happen in the main event, but I was pumped and jacked when I saw McGuinness's Titantron and I heard his music. I'm glad that they were able to get the Oasis on for that. Didn't think they would, but this was a lot of fun. We got as close to an Okada one-on-one match we could get on this show. So I still would have loved to have seen a one-on-one with him, but we got pretty close to it with his face-off against Orange Cassidy, and they played up the relation between he and Cassidy in Chaos with New Japan. So Zack Sabre Jr. coming out was also a big pop for me. I really enjoyed how they had this all laid out. I love me some Jeff Jarrett. I know everybody's not the biggest Jeff Jarrett fan, but you know what? I am. And I was glad to see Double J getting his just due in front of 50,000 people at Wembley and everybody chanting his name. And it made sense for him to come out with the story that they were telling with Adam Page. And they continued that along with him just whatever he can, however way he can, just trying to get to Swerve. And him just getting more and more out of control, crazy. The competitors here were great, and I think you touched on it very well. This was very much an ode to a lot of the fans that had been following Reign of Honor, and seeing them and their rise up into how we know them now. This was so much fun. I haven't had this much fun in a gauntlet in a while, and I'm including Royal Rumbles in this too. And really the only gauntlet match that I could compare this to was the other gauntlet match on Dynamite a few months back, when it was just star after star after star coming out. It was your Jeff Cobbs and your Mysticos and all that coming out, and you just didn't know who was going to win. And that was the one where Ospreay won to get the championship opportunity against Swerve Strickland. So I think they've really found a fun match type here that they can work with in the future. I don't love the cash-in aspect of the world title match, but I'd much rather it be like you get a title shot at this pay-per-view or on this Dynamite. But those are like small criticisms I have. And I think the finish, while I saw what they were going for, and it made sense, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it to the point where I would hate the match or anything like that. But overall, this was so much fun. This was a really, really fun gauntlet match. One of the best matches on the show for me. It was so good. Yeah.
And I think my fear here is that they will try and recreate this. And it felt like one of those moments where I'm not sure that you can recreate it all that much. It just felt like star after star after star, as you said. And that to me was great. I thought Ricochet looked fantastic coming out, and you kind of look at him going, he should be in this promotion. It'll be interesting to see what they do with him. Look, Nigel McGuinness coming out was incredible. And I didn't care personally what he looked like in the ring. I think if somebody didn't know Nigel McGuinness from a hole in the ground, that guy looks a little slower than everyone else, which is fair. He's in the ring with some of the greats in the business today. I didn't think he looked as great as I wanted him to, but I understand how long he's been out of the ring. I understand the emotion. I understand all of it. And he gets a full pass from me. It's not like he wrecked anything or looked like
he was in great shape when he came out. He looked like he was ready to go.
Yes. There's a lot of great things about it. And it didn't matter to me that he looked a little bit slower than the other guys. He did, but I didn't care. And we'll see if he can, like, if he gets in one-on-one matches, how he's able to kind of perform. It reminded me a little bit when you said I was too hard on Takahashi, say, like at Forbidden Door last year.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, like I get it. That's kind of what he used to be. And now I feel like I'm almost contradicting myself going, well, it's okay for Nigel McGuinness to be that way. It's not okay for Takahashi. Now, Takahashi didn't, have the time off in the story. And
right. Are you talking about, Hiroshi Tanahashi?
Tanahashi, yeah, not Takahashi. Gotcha. Sorry, Tanahashi.
All good.
I thank you for that correction. Because he looks slower, right? And Ibushi has come in and looks slower.
Yes.
And look, Nigel McGuinness looked a little slower, but just the moment and what it would have meant for him, I think a lot of people can relate to what it would have meant for him to be there. And he didn't do anything like really poorly. He's in there with some crazy talent. It was just a star-studded affair. And I just don't know how you could ever do one that makes more sense that was executed the way that this one was executed and have it be as good or better than this one. Like it just had all of the elements for me for like, okay, if this is what anyone was trying to accomplish with a gauntlet match in the history of wrestling, now this is the example. Star power, like people didn't even have energy, I don't think, to give to all of the different pops that happened in a short period of time. It's kind of like what the Royal Rumble should be, but it's too long, it's too drawn out. I get it, people still love the Rumble, but I just thought that this is the perfect amount of people too. They had 12 people in it. It could be up to 21. They didn't put 21 people. They didn't make it chaos. And a lot of people got their moments. You can criticize a little bit maybe that people are out of the ring for way too long to give other people their moments. But hey, there's 12 people in there. I just loved almost everything about this. And the fact that Christian has another world title shot, like I am here for. Like I just there isn't much. But in speaking of having a world title match, that's because Christian will not be defending the World Trios Championship, because in a 4-team match that had for the Trios Championship, and we talked about this, had 12 people involved in this match. You had the Guns, the Bang Bang Gang without Jay White. You had the Patriarchy. You had the House of Black, and then you had the makeshift team with Pac, with Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta, part of the Blackpool Combat Club. And your winners are Pac and Claudio and Wheeler. We have new World Trios champions. Zach, we'll start with you on your thoughts on this match.
It was a ladder match that had a lot of big spots and people trying to make the most of their TV time that they had, especially in a big stadium atmosphere like this. I thought that, people played their roles well, and I thought the patriarchy were going to retain in this, but they did go with the makeshift team of Pac and Blackpool Combat Club, so that kind of adds a new wrinkle. At no point when I was watching this was I thinking, I'm glad this is over an Okada singles match. This was a lot of ladder matches I've seen in other shows, not just AEW, but across what's seemingly the wrestling landscape. They put this out there to kind of get the crowd amped up as an opening match, and I think it served its purpose. So yeah, this was a ladder match, and Pac and Blackpool Combat Club won. There were spots, fun was had, and yeah, congrats to the new World Trios champions.
That doesn't sound like a raving review.
No,
I'll give it a little bit less than your review. I didn't like this match. I didn't think it was the right opener. I didn't think it did a lot for the crowd. It looked like chaos a lot of the time. There were 12 guys again in the ring trying to get their time, trying to get their spots. I will point out a couple that I enjoyed. I did enjoy the Nick Wayne Canadian Destroyer out to the table.
Yes.
And I did enjoy, I hope that Juice Robinson is okay off the top of the biggest ladder, falling on the ropes, and if he was able to execute not getting hurt by landing completely in the groin area from that distance on the top rope, good for him.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing because I think it looked incredible. It looked like that guy would never get up ever. And
felt that too, yeah.
And that to me is how you end a match, where there's a spot in a ladder match that, okay, well, if that's the final one, that guy's never getting up. And good on Juice Robinson for really being able to execute that all by himself. Like, yeah, Christian pushed the ladder over, but that's all on him.
Yep.
I don't understand the winners. I'm just a little bit confused on the entry of a new team, how the new team got there, because the House of Black and the Bang Bang Gang and the Patriarchy have been vying over these titles for a while, and I think have at least put themselves in the top 3 contenders. I don't know how 2/3 of the Blackpool Combat Club or half of the Blackpool Combat Club, and then just Pac being added, how they even got into this match. And then I don't understand from a storyline perspective that Pac had the shot at the international championship and wanted his big Wembley moment. And instead of taking it in the international championship match, decided that he would team up on a team that he's really not a part of for a trios championship and win it. And I don't know where Jon Moxley is. And that is just odd to me. Like, if I think of the Blackpool Combat Club, I think of Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson. I don't really, the other guys are there. You know how I feel about Claudio. There's just some things I don't understand about why they won and why, like, where they're going with it. And I thought I saw some really high reviews of this match, and it's like,
yeah,
okay, I kind of feel like you. I like ladder matches more than you do, and I didn't like this one. I just thought it was just another ladder match with, like, I just didn't have any real feeling towards it, and I really didn't understand the winners.
Yeah, so, I will say this. This is me guessing why. And unfortunately, it's not a storyline reason. It's more of a, I think this is what they think behind the scenes reason. I think they wanted to do Pac and the Lucha Brothers being in this match, and then the stuff kind of came out about their contracts with the Lucha Brothers and if they will stay in AEW and go to WWE. And I think they still wanted to have that visual of Pac winning at Wembley. And so they came up with this makeshift, as you mentioned, with Jon Moxley out of the picture. And it seems like he's taking some time off for now. But putting those two together and then getting a big moment for Pac at Wembley so that he could celebrate a title win in front of the crowd. That is just my guess. I have no other information to support that. It is just a feeling I have, because I agree with a lot of what you said there. But also, Claudio Castagnoli finally breaking through the jobber title bestowed upon Lee Versage and becoming a champion in AEW, winning a big match in front of 50,000 people. So,
there's no question, that first of all, Claudio had nothing to do with the win, and
a win's a win.
Wasn't really there for any of the key moments, and then walked down to the ring with another title that I guess he won in Mexico, like as another tertiary title.
Yeah,
and when I say a tertiary title,
it's a literal tertiary title.
Folks, like, learn your vocabulary. Tertiary and trios, like, come on, that's
perfect.
Just professional.
Yes.
I couldn't think of a title that means less, and let's just keep piling up tertiary titles on guys like Claudio and then call them important.
Not a jobber though. I'll say that. That's a win. It's that classic. You don't do any work in the group project, but you still get an A. An A is an A. So good for Claudio. And that guy was a workhorse this past couple of days, I will say. He was in Wales, then flew to Mexico to wrestle at CMLL, then flew back into the UK to wrestle on this Wembley show. So workhorse, that guy, Claudio Castagnoli.
Yeah, I guess. If you include flying and sleeping, and yeah, I guess it takes a toll with the time differences, but then he came back to basically sleep his way through this match as well.
Wow.
Okay.
No love for Claudio. Wow. Gotta give him something here, Lee. Got a title. He's got a Wembley moment. He wrestled a lot. You know.
What title does he have now?
The Trios champion. Oh, it's the CMLL Grand Prix tournament there.
Oh, awesome. The Grand Prix tournament. So it's not even really a title. It's just a cup.
Yes.
It's kind of like before they put the stipulation of winning the Owen Hart gives you a title match, just carrying around the belt, the Owen Hart belt, like Adam Cole and Britt Baker did, for absolutely no reason at all.
It looks importantly.
Yes, if you put gold on you, it must look important. Yes, Dustin Rhodes is a double champion or whatever he is, isn't he?
Yes.
Okay.
He is.
Cool.
A Ring of Honor double champion, I should add, but a double champion.
He's a double champion.
That's right. Yeah, no, he is. He is.
Dustin Rhodes.
Yes.
Does that make him important?
Well, he wasn't featured on this Wembley show. Well,
do you think Dustin Rhodes is important in the scheme of things of what you look at through the AEW lens? Is Dustin Rhodes important?
No.
Okay.
No. He's a mid-card guy.
He's not even a mid-card guy. He was
on the pre-show.
Oh my God.
Hey, the main event of the pre-show. Not many people get the main event of the pre-show.
No, and a 5-way claw that I had to watch when I tried not to watch the pre-show, and all of a sudden I turn around and there's some 5-way claw going on, and I'm like, oh my God. When did Sammy Guevara grow up to have a hand big enough to put a claw on anybody?
That's a great question, actually.
Yeah,
about Sammy.
And why would Sammy Guevara's claw do anything to anybody?
Well, when you're under the Von Erich learning tree, as opposed to the Jericho learning tree.
Professional segue into the learning tree. Chris Jericho defending the For the World Championship against Hook. And we got ourselves a new FTW World Champion. And that is Hook. After removing the eye patch, because we've never seen that before, oh my God, he really can see. But we do get a Taz interference. Again, I'm an old ECW guy. I love Taz. I thought the entrances here were pretty good. It was a good one for Chris Jericho. It was a good one for Hook. They made it seem important. And a little bit surprised for me. I know you weren't, but Hook wins the belt with the help of his father, Taz. I don't really have a lot to say about the match. I had no expectation of Chris Jericho and Hook being a really good match. I thought it was okay for what it was. I thought it actually got the story across. You had the Taz interference helping his son, which I think we knew, but at some point we didn't know for sure whether it was going to come, and then it finally came. And for me, that is a feel-good moment. So I don't mind it in this scenario. Where Hook goes from here, I hope is kind of bigger and better. We'll see. It was a match that I like both guys, and I want both guys to succeed. And I didn't think they embarrassed themselves, and I always like to see Taz. So for what it was okay. The wrestling itself was not fantastic, but I didn't expect it to be. Did
you enjoy the heartbeat entrance they did for Hook?
I really wanted to hear the rest of it. And the rest of Taz's before his theme song. Yeah. I love the heartbeat. I know that, you probably have some rights issues with WWE buying ECW and not being able to do that. You would have to tell me whether WWE has trademarked the slogan that Taz used to use. Mm-hmm. One of my favorites of all time.
Beat me if you can, survive if I let you.
That's it.
There you go.
Survive if I let you, Zach. Okay. Just survive if I let you.
That's right.
But yeah, it popped me because I'm an old ECW guy for sure.
Right. I thought for sure it was going to transition to Kiss's War Machine, but then we got to Hook's on after that. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. I enjoyed the heartbeat. I thought we were going to go all the way, but I guess we didn't want it to be too much of a tribute. Yeah. So, I mean, the safest bet in wrestling, just bet on Jericho to lose.
I know.
It's the safest bet. But the modern day Hulk Hogan strikes again, Lee. Losing in front of 50,000 people on the mid card to Hook, despite having two other people on the outside.
Yeah.
And all interfering in the match too, by the way.
Multiple times. Yeah.
Multiple times. Also, Hook, for a period, not the whole match, granted, but only had the eye patch on. He only had one eye as he was wrestling. And so, but obviously Chris Jericho, the modern day Hulk Hogan, striking again with another pinfall loss to Hook.
For those who don't get that,
or sorry, a submission loss. Oh, even better. He tapped. He tapped. Oh yeah, definitely the modern day Hulk Hogan.
On my pick'em sheet, I had Jericho winning by pinfall, so I was a little incorrect. But for those who don't get it, yes, the modern day Hulk Hogan, who never really let anybody beat him at any time, no matter what. And people somehow say that Jericho is like that and holding other people down, when in reality, all he ever does is lose. And it's an upset when he wins. And I thought it would be an upset here, but no, it's very predictable. As you said, safest bet. Jericho just losing in another big, decent mid-card spot.
Yeah.
Again, to a young, up-and-coming wrestler.
Yeah.
So
what a glory hog that Chris Jericho is, stealing spotlight and all this, and singing his own song, which I was actually surprised to hear you say you liked it, because the majority of the reaction I saw online was that they didn't like it. And
I loved it.
I'm like, folks, come on. Do none of you understand how being a heel works? None of you. He's doing it because he knows you're going to hate it. Yes. Come on.
And that's why I loved it.
It's like, for the love of God, people. Like,
it's simple. I know, and that's the thing. It's actually going over people's heads. This very, very, very simple concept, which means, just like Zach told you all a few weeks ago, you people are stupid.
Well, hold on.
Just like Zach told you.
I didn't say that.
You people are stupid.
I didn't say all of you. I didn't say WWE fans. I said the fans in that moment were dumb. I still stand by that remark, but I just want to avoid getting the heat from the DMs and all that. But
were the people online who didn't like this stupid?
Those specific people did not show a lot of thought into their responses. I will say that.
Zach is a PC way of saying you folks are stupid.
it's hilarious. And you go into the comments of Jericho's posts, and they're talking about taking up spotlight. He's like, yes, I did. Thanks, guys. He knows what he's doing. Come on. Why is this so hard for people to see?
Anyway, it's not hard for you and I to see, and we're the smarter people of all the people you're talking about. And other than my picks for this, although you got a couple big ones wrong too. So, but my picks were not good.
I heard you got 75 points in the pick'em there.
Okay. Well, again, sometimes you have to go against the grain. It's been my whole life, but
yeah.
I do think at some point, with the biggest show that AEW has, and being sort of an AEW guy, the Predictriver, or whatever the hell his name is, that's our champion,
yes,
needed to have his picks in and needed to know what exactly happened, because the former champion, Chris Thompson, I want to say anti-AEW guy, I would sort of put him under the column of the learning tree, and he's kind of Big Bill, like he's there. I don't really care.
Would he shockingly get big reactions in the UK?
Yeah. He's waiting for his Enzo to come along to make him popular. But was able to pull out the victory over all of the wrestling aficionados that were gathered together yesterday watching. And I think rightly so, after beating everybody, and I hate to give him credit, but rightly so, kind of said, well, I don't really know where the champion is. I haven't seen the champion's picks, and I just beat everybody else. I'm the former champion, and I just kind of earned my number one contendership again. And I'm like, man, I wish I had an argument here. I wish I could just say something to the guy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he was so good, he even beat AEW fanboy Ben Soublier at his own game.
Wow.
In his own house yesterday.
Nice.
Okay? Like, he walked in to enemy territory where he had no chance and said, I got this. I'm going to beat you. And he did. And he beat everyone else too. And I get it. The Predictriver. Can't believe I kept saying it because Tanner was there, and I kept saying the Predict Tanner.
Yeah.
Who also was in the running to win. It came down to Ben and Tanner and Le Champion. And Le Champion was able to pull through with the victory. And so, yeah, there's got to be something done about this.
Yeah. I will say I am in constant communication with the Predictriver. He is not fallen off the face of. In fact, he has just messaged me while we were recording. So
yeah,
I will get his ass in gear in time for Full Gear, perhaps, to try and get some picks in. So
yeah, well, if he doesn't get his picks in soon, he'll be all out.
Ooh,
as champion. Nice, 2 weeks.
Good stuff.
All out. Anyway, I love the Predictriver. We need to hear from him a little bit more. And the Champion made a statement yesterday. And so that's all I can say. He made a statement. He walked into enemy territory, walked into AEW fanboy's house, who was good enough to host, and said, this is my territory.
That's right. Put a line in the sand and said, this is my territory, brother.
Oh, I like it. Line in the sand. A little evolution.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. And we'll not have to speed it up. There's just a lot to talk about.
Yep.
I'm going to open the floor to you. And under the umbrella of women's world title matches, plural, on this card, and just leave it open to you to go where you want, when you want, with the two feature matches for titles yesterday. So you got Britt Baker and Mercedes Moné, and you have Toni Storm and Mariah May.
Yeah. These two matches, of the two, I would say the Mariah May match was better, but I didn't like either of these matches. I'll start off with the Mariah May stuff. So I knew we were in for something when they did that promo package. And the guy there who's from Turner Classic Movies, I apologize, I can't pronounce his name correctly, so I won't attempt it. But when he said, let's go out there and make cinema, I wanted to vomit when I heard that. So I strapped myself in to see what would happen, what sort of feature production I would be watching from these two. And I watched it, and I didn't think it was bad. I didn't love it either. I did not like the finish one bit. I thought we were going to move on with the Ospreay stuff of not being able to hit the move. But no, AEW has determined that this is actually getting over, so let's try and apply this to this storyline as well. And Toni Storm cannot hit Mariah May over the head with the shoe that she took from Mariah May weeks ago from that Owen Hart tournament. I was like, you've been interfering in all of her matches, and then all of a sudden in the heat of the moment, you're like, oh, I don't know. I'm so conflicted with this shoe in my hand. Like, what are we doing here? Just, what is it with the wrestlers in this company and not hitting their finishing moves? Just hit the damn move. What? This is professional wrestling. Like, hit the move and win the goddamn match. I'm not asking for the world here. But no, we have to do acting and cinema. This is no different than what WWE does. Sorry for all the AEW fanboys that might hear this, but you gotta hear it. No different. So the finish, I could care less about. Mariah May wins, and I felt the crowd was up and down in terms of their reactions to her. I didn't think it was like an overwhelming pop or anything like that. And considering how long they've been building up this story, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. But having said all of that, of the two matches, this was the better of the match. I thought the work was better. I'm not buying Mariah May being a featured player in this women's division. I don't know about you, Lee, but I kind of watched it and I think she's good, but I don't think, again, she's a featured player. And then in this Mercedes Moné Britt Baker match, I just thought those two didn't have chemistry. And I've been on the boat that I don't think Britt Baker is that great of a wrestler. I think she is a better plunder wrestler than a singles wrestler. To me, watching it, there were moments where it felt like Mercedes was trying to carry the match a little bit. That might be a little harsh, but just what I saw from this 17-minute match. And I just didn't think there was any sort of cohesion between the two. So I was disappointed in the Mercedes Moné Britt Baker match. I thought this was the worst match of the show. Up there with Hook and Chris Jericho in terms of match quality. So yeah, I guess those are my thoughts on the two matches. I was disappointed in the Mercedes match, especially because I thought it would be better. And I know people will say, oh, it came after the Ospreay MJF match and they were in a tough spot, but it's like, man, these two are, especially Mercedes, they're good. Mercedes is a very good wrestler at worst. Like, good wrestlers are able to thrive in the spots that they're in. I've seen plenty of times with other wrestlers where they're in spots where they're after a hot match and they're able to get the crowd back on their side. So while, yes, the spot on the card where they were in wasn't great, you still have a responsibility to try and get people into your match, and they just didn't do that. So didn't really like this match. I was hoping for more, and it just didn't meet my expectations.
Okay. You did fail to mention that you were pretty adamant that Britt Baker was going to win, and I, sternly corrected you on the previous
I don't know
show.
if I was adamant. I said, I'm torn. I'm going to stick with Britt Baker.
Right. And I was like, no, this is like, this is pretty close. This wasn't like other matches where I thought it was like a stone cold lock. But this was a pretty close to a lock for me that the Monet had only got the belt a couple months ago. Introduced Camille. It just didn't make a lot of sense for her to lose this match. So, yeah, I got a couple of things to say. I thought that the best part of the women's matches, and I know I I framed the question in a way that you weren't going to go here, but the best part about the two women's matches and the women that were involved in the show came from the pre-show, which is unfortunate. I thought Jamie Hayter coming out to Saraya and Jamie Hayter coming back looked like a mega star. And I get it. She looked a little bit like Becky Lynch with the long red hair, but she looked in shape. She looked incredible. She looked like a star. And I'm like, I was pumped. I was actually jacked up watching her. Best part of the pre-show by far.
Yes.
I would have done that on the main show. It didn't take too long. Saraya could have come out. She would have got a pop. She's hating on everyone. Jamie Hayter coming out. It would have taken 3 minutes on the main show, and it would have been awesome. I would have put that on the main show personally, and I'm so glad Jamie Hayter is back. I do disagree with you. I thought Mariah May and Toni Storm was pretty good. I thought there was some good wrestling. You don't like the couldn't hit her part because of the emotion that's involved, and those two being as close as they were, and a best friend turning on you. Whether it's happened in other storylines or not, I think they built to this. I get it. It made sense. And I thought the match was pretty good. I disagree with you on Mariah May being sort of in that top star power. I thought Toni Storm, we'll see where she goes here. I thought there's a possibility that Luther could have turned, as they kept mentioning. He hadn't been there since the Mariah May turned on her in the first place. And then he was grabbing the belt at one point, and I'm like, oh boy, could Luther turn here? To me, you got the right winner. It lets Toni Storm go in a different direction. Really enjoyed this match. And I thought with the discrepancy between the two, most of the crowd I was with also really enjoyed it. And that doesn't persuade me either way. I just thought that there was enough here between the wrestling. They did do a Stormbreaker. No, not a Stormbreaker. What do they call the short pile driver? The Toni Storm does. The Storm Driver.
I think it is.
On the steel steps, which I thought was really good. There's a couple of near falls. I thought this wasn't the most magnificent match I've ever seen. I thought it was well done, well executed. Two people from the area that it meant a lot to, and the crowd chanting for Toni after. She is clearly, a huge baby face. I think it can make Mariah May even more evil. I'm excited to watch where this goes. And I didn't think this would be the best of the two matches, and it wasn't even close. Because where you are right is Britt Baker and Mercedes Moné sucked. And it was the worst match on the card. And I was defending it at the beginning, going, no, I'm looking forward to that match more than I'm looking forward to Toni Storm and Mariah May. Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be exactly the opposite. So there are some questions here, and some big time questions on both sides. Number one, what is the deal with Britt Baker? Like, she came out, she looked pissed off. I thought at points, like, we were even talking as we're watching it, is like, is she sandbagging this one? Like, she's selling a back injury. I get it. I don't know where the back injury came from, because she went on TV and said she had a stroke. And now it's like she was out a long time with a back injury. What are you talking about? Was that the 2-week suspension that she was out a long time with a back injury? Or was it the stroke that she talked about having on television? Either way, don't like the back injury angle. Mm-hmm. Also, it looked in a lot of things that Mercedes was trying to execute that Britt Baker was not helping her at all. From even, jumping into suplexes, she looked like dead weight. And I don't know that that's selling a back injury or being pissed off or just not being good, or I don't really know what that was, but it looked like somebody that was putting in a poor effort. And then, as you said, I don't care who you are. and I don't care who you're with. Will Ospreay when they say the whole broomstick thing from that someone could go out and wrestle a broomstick and make the broomstick look good.
Mm-hmm.
The top stars in the business, the people who are getting paid the most money, have the ability or should have the ability to go out and do that. I would trust Will Ospreay with a broomstick. I would trust Zack Sabre Jr. or Bryan Danielson or MJF or a lot of people in that company with a broomstick. Mercedes Moné was in there with a decent wrestler. We can have different opinions on what Britt Baker actually is, but she's not awful. And Mercedes Moné did not elevate herself. She didn't elevate Britt Baker, and she worked her way to the worst match of the night. And correct me if I'm wrong, there aren't too many people, Zach, in the company getting paid more than Mercedes Moné.
She is very much in the upper echelon of those getting paid in the company.
Yeah, well, she didn't do a lot to help herself yesterday. Worst match of the night, Mercedes Moné does beat Britt Baker after Camille's thrown out, and then it's a sloppy finish again. And I'm tired of sloppy finishes with Mercedes Moné. There's been a couple of times where her opponent has helped her out with her terrible finisher.
That has to change, that finisher.
Oh,
somebody has to pull her aside and say, look, it's not working. We got to change things up.
Yeah. And then they couldn't get into it, and they almost had to reset and do it again at the end. And then Mercedes, even though Camille's thrown out, beats her clean. It's like, well, do you really need a bodyguard then? I don't know. There's nothing I liked about this match. And thought it was the worst one on the card. And those two need to pull up their socks and just be a whole lot better, because this was not a good performance. Easily, to me, the worst match of the night.
Yep.
We still got some things to get to here, so I don't want to go too long.
Sure.
Let's get to the other part that I really didn't love. Is you're still, Zach, I said this before, and I said, well, watch the match, and then you'll have to tell me afterwards. I picked the Acclaim to win because I saw no reason for them to be in this match other than the fact that they were going to actually be involved and win the titles and have two good teams chasing them, blah, 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 blah. They're homegrown. I don't know why they were ever included in this match. All of a sudden, they were the focal point of this tag team for the last couple of weeks. They go into the match, and again, they're not involved, and the Young Bucks retain, and it ended up exactly like I thought. This match was not a match I would recommend people go back and see. It wasn't terrible, but if we just got the Bucks and FTR, we still could have got a match that would have been, wow, that was a really, really good match, even if it was predictable that FTR wasn't going to win. But I just have no sense to or no capability to explain why the Acclaimed were involved in this, and then why they went with the result they did with just the Bucks retaining anyway. I didn't love this match. It was okay. The Bucks and FTR can go out and basically not do anything and still look good. A couple of good spots in this match, but didn't love this match whatsoever. And it had nothing. It didn't get any storylines over to me. I don't really know why it's there.
Yeah, this was very much a fine match. I was hoping for more, especially with the caliber of the tag teams in here. For what we've said about the Acclaimed, I agree with everything that you're saying there. They were very over with this UK crowd, shockingly over. A lot of scissors in the crowd, and to the point where I was like, oh man, I think they're gonna win here. Because it's set up that way. But yes, as you mentioned, the Bucks were able to retain. I was hoping for more from this. I know that the Bucks could do more. I know FTR could do more. I think the Acclaimed in certain spots, they can reach a level we saw when they were hot a couple of years ago. So having said all that, this was just kind of a match on the card. I did like seeing the grizzled young veterans out to confront the Bucks. That brings some much needed depth into this tag team division, and I really like that team. I enjoyed their work in WWE, and I think they'll be a really good fit in AEW, and I look forward to that future match with FTR. I think those two styles will mesh very well.
Can you correct me if I'm wrong, though, that Grizzled Young Veterans have already been out on AEW television a couple of times?
I know they were out on Collision a while
I know.
back.
It's a show that nobody watches. I get it. When I was told that Collision is going to be like the new main show that everyone's going to watch, and I was the one that told people that it wasn't. And then now it isn't, and now we can't even remember. But they were out on television,
Yes,
on AEW, which, as pointed out within the group as we were watching it, would have made a much bigger impact if they had not been on television, and then come out in this spot. But all the same, am I looking forward to seeing them against FTR? Yes. Which is the best part that came out of this match.
Yep.
Well, that's not good. If you have, like, really your best homegrown, in your opinion, team with two incredible teams with FTR and Young Bucks, and the best thing that came out of the match is the Grizzled Young Vets. Well, okay.
And they didn't exactly get the biggest pop either when they showed up.
No.
So, this was kind of a match on the card, which, imagine telling me that 5 years ago, that a Young Bucks FTR match of any kind, even with the Acclaimed in there, would just be another match on the card. I would have called you crazy. Yeah. So
I agree. And that's why I don't think the Acclaimed or Grizzled Young Vets should have been involved, and they just should have been four really great guys wrestling each other again. Because I don't think you can get enough of that. But as you said, a match that happened. Also a match that happened. Okay, you go first. Okay? I'm excited to hear. Jack Perry, Darby Allin, coffin match TNT championship.
I didn't blow it. I'm glad I didn't blow it.
We were all, like, I can't tell you the amount of references other than, like, the only reference above I can't believe Zach didn't pick Jack Perry a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
What was I'm so glad Zach isn't here with the rest of us. Now, that was really Chris Holsky.
Wow.
Yeah. Followed up by, I tried to defend you. I'm like, look, guys, he's not here. Like, I love Zach. Like, and they were just, like, piling on you.
Wow. Just burials.
But the burial of you not being able to select Jack Perry winning the TNT championship, thinking that Leo Rush somehow was going to win, or
no, hold on. That one was the one. Yes.
No, you mentioned Leo Rush was second.
I said a dark horse. Yes.
No, second, and Jack Perry was third.
I said
okay.
Dark horse.
Let's be correct.
No, I'm being correct. I said dark horse.
Yeah, Leo Rush second.
Yes.
Jack Perry third.
Yeah, I said Takeshita won.
Yeah, Takeshita won.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, okay, but
no, I own up to that part. Absolutely.
Okay, you got Jack Perry right.
Yeah, I'm so glad it was. Could you imagine if, like, I'm not going to make the same mistake again? I'm going to pick Jack Perry and then Darby Allin won it. That would just.
I wanted you to double down, thinking this is the time that Jack Perry's not going to win, and pick the Darby Allin. I think that would especially. So, what did you think of this match?
I was lacking for me. I thought we were going to get more, especially with this match type and Darby Allin being in it. Like, I thought it would be more daring in terms of its spots, and it really wasn't for a Darby Allin match. Like, again, it's Darby Allin. You're going to get some crazy stuff in there. Like, he came out with a thumbtacks on his face or whatever. So it wasn't like he didn't try to be daring. It was shockingly short. I thought we were going to go on a little bit longer, but it ended up being a 10-minute match, and Perry just brought out the body bag, dragged him in, and then closed the casket. I was like, oh, okay, that's a little anticlimactic. But I'm like, all right, at least my Jack Perry pick didn't go awry, and I could come onto this podcast not with my head down. But yeah, this was. I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was great either. I thought, again, it was a fine match.
Let me interject.
Sure.
And say that this is the best thing that they've done with Jack Perry so far.
Really? Okay.
Okay. Jack Perry squashed Darby Allin in a big spot on a pay-per-view. Like, he squashed him. and as you said, never really allowed Darby to get going. And well, I don't know how I feel about Sting coming out.
It's just a moment,
I get it. It's another moment. It's another people. Did he get a pop? Yes. Were people probably that went to Wembley excited to see Sting? Yes. I can't take that away from them. I wasn't excited to see him back. I'm glad he didn't get involved in the match. He just came out afterwards as a little bit of protection, which if you're going to do it, that's the way I would have done it. I probably wouldn't have done it at all.
Yep.
But if you're going to do it, that's the way I would have done it. I actually think this is the best thing that they've done for Jack in a long time, because they made him look like Darby Allin is beloved. Darby Allin can take a loss. We all picked Jack Perry. Like, nobody picked Darby Allin. Even though I wanted you to so badly, but nobody at the party, like, everyone knew that Jack Perry was going to win this match.
Yeah.
And I just loved that he squashed him. I think it made Jack Perry actually look fairly strong. And I came out with a body bag. I told you I was going to put this guy in a body bag. He really didn't get all that much offense in on me, and I put him in the body bag. And I put him in the coffin, and Sting had to come out before we lit him on fire. Like, he just looked really strong in this match. And to me, it covers up a couple of things that I don't think he's the greatest wrestler, and that if he's in a 20-minute match, I'm probably going to be disappointed with it. I actually think for now, this is a really good way to book it. I think he came across really strong, and I didn't understand the people that didn't like it online, and it, a lot of people didn't give it that good of a. It wasn't a great match. It was strong booking to me. But the match wasn't great.
No.
But the fact that it was short, he squashed him, and it made Jack Perry look really strong over a credible opponent. Darby Allin went out there in front of 50,000 people at Wembley, could afford to do it, but got squashed by Jack Perry. Good for Darby for doing that for him. I don't really have many other thoughts on that other than the fact that I think they actually made Jack Perry look pretty strong going forward. And I'm understanding of that about the job that they did to be able to do it. So good for them. All right. I don't think I missed anything. Let's get to the main event. Unless I missed something.
Unless you want to talk about the 10-man tag team match or the 16-man tag team match in the pre-show, or
no,
or the mixed tag team match.
No,
you didn't like,
I do not.
You didn't like Stokely Hathaway coming out, lying down on the bed there.
No, I actually don't want to talk about it.
No, okay, all right.
All right, let's get to the main event. Bryan Danielson, Swerve Strickland for the AEW World Championship. I'll let you kind of go from here. And your thoughts on it. I will tell you, I thought it was a wonderful presentation of leading up to the moment, with Bryan Danielson already being like, how over he was incredible to watch. Still, it really was how incredible and what the crowd was doing when he came out, during the match, after the match. But Swerve Strickland also, to me, looked like a freaking star. And I thought held himself up very, very well. But your thoughts on Bryan Danielson? I was smart enough to listen to you, Zach, until I went to the pick 'em pool and switched my pick again.
Oh, Lee, no.
But that's on the podcast officially. I picked Bryan Danielson after listening to Zach. Smart enough to understand Zach might be on to something here. So pat myself on the back for not thinking I'm too big for this. But Bryan Danielson is your new AEW World Champion.
So the pick'em is non-canon, is what you're trying to say? What your pick of Swerve Strickland at that party there is non-canon?
Oh, I don't even know that it's official. Like, who even knows I did?
That explains the 75 points.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I just missed that match and forgot to put it on.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I loved this match. I thought this match was fantastic. I loved the emotion that it told here, and as you mentioned, the crowd was so over, and I thought they did a great job because you run the risk with a match like this with two guys that are presented as baby faces on TV, where you get sort of a dueling thing. But as soon as they had Swerve do those stomps in front of Danielson's family, I was like, oh yeah, here we go. This is pro wrestling, Lee. This is what I'm talking about. No hesitate. Did Swerve hesitate to put the boots to Danielson? No. Nope. And guess what? He came out awesome looking out after this. So I just don't understand this mentality on the other matches. But we're not talking about the other matches.
Hold on. Let me just ask you a couple of questions that I think are valid questions.
Sure.
So Swerve Strickland is mad that Hangman Page came into his house to attack his family and put his kids at risk.
Yes.
And then it's okay for Swerve to do that to somebody else's kids in the front row?
Oh, I'm saying from a heel standpoint, I loved it. I'm glad that he didn't hold back or anything like that.
No, I understand completely what you're saying. I'm asking you just logistically and consistent wise, is that okay for Swerve to be mad that Hangman did it to him, but he's doing it to somebody else's family?
Wasn't it the opposite where Swerve went into Hangman's whole ordeal? Like, isn't that consistent with his character that he would do something like that? That's what I thought it was.
Well, that's what happened. They both did it to each other, no?
I don't remember. Did Hangman go into Swerve's, like, with Swerve's family? I don't remember that. I definitely remember him going into Hangman, mainly because Hangman has been preaching about it on TV in his promos. I could be wrong about that. Maybe it's a key story detail that I have forgotten, but I loved it for this match. I will say that. I even then I still loved it. Just did it, you know? And it established right away, this is the guy you're going to boo. We're trying to get Danielson as the baby face over, and we want to try and get this moment over. And I thought, you know, you hear from some folks that AEW doesn't know how to do stories, and it's like this they couldn't be more wrong after watching this. I thought what they told here with the rise of Bryan Danielson and being able to fire himself up and get motivated so that he could become a world champion in front of 50,000 people, beating Swerve Strickland. I thought Swerve Strickland looked agree with you. He looked like such a big star here. He looked tremendous. I thought he played his role so well. And I think as part of that story, you're seeing more people lean towards Hangman being the babyface and Swerve going to start to be more back in the heel side. And you can go back to another turn in the future if you wanted to. So I think the way that they've got this story going is just tremendous. And both these guys, obviously Danielson had the blood running down his face and looking over to the family in the corner and saying, I'm sorry. It's a little bit of an ode to Shawn Michaels.
That spot was amazing as he's facing them saying, I'm sorry, I love you, as he knows he's going to get kicked in the head, was, I thought, incredible storytelling. So
good. It was so good. And crowd was firmly invested in it. And, they showed the shot of Birdie crying after seeing her dad get stomped in the face by Swerve. That Bryan Danielson, he's something else when it comes to being the mindset of a pro wrestler. It's like, I'm going to bring my family over. It was very much a scene out of Beyond the Mat, if you've ever seen that documentary when Foley took on The Rock in that I Quit match, and he had the family at ringside, and they were turning away because Foley just got his ass beaten out of him. It's quite the match. This was so good, and we touched on it earlier. Then Hangman kind of jumped over the guardrail and started, going.
You okay with the interference?
If it directly
in a big spot,
if it directly involved him, like if he ran in and Swerve lost because of it, I wouldn't have liked it. It didn't, like, I felt it was very much towing the line. If it was directly involved with a finish, I wouldn't have liked it, and I would have thought that was just an easy way out for the company to do, and they could have done something better.
Yeah, so immediately when this happened, of course, being hard on SummerSlam with all the interferences, like pro WWE, Le Champion's all over me. Well, what do you think about this main event? Blah, blah, blah. Hangman, like, I'm like, just let it play out. And then let's see, in 10 minutes, what's going to happen. Like, is this the call? Like, just let this play out.
Yeah.
And as it played out, it was like, okay, he came, he's stuck his nose to say, I'm not done with you, but he really didn't get involved, and security got him away, and then he was gone.
Yep.
And again, I get this more because Hangman's a star, and he's been like the story of him with the family and going crazy and all of this stuff. He's a star. So to poke his nose into a main event like this, but not be directly involved, I had no problem with.
Yep.
I actually think it makes more sense than the Daniel Garcia one to me, because Daniel Garcia is not a star like Hangman Page is. He's not in the world title picture. So to me, this one didn't bother me whatsoever. Yeah. And again, I'm on the same page as you, that if something happened more where Hangman were to cause Swerve to lose or whatever, that's not in a main event spot like that. But he didn't really cause anything. He just was like, I still care, and I'm still going to beat the crap out of you at some point. And just so you know, I'm still here.
Yeah. Now, that's
really all it was.
If it evolved and then all of a sudden Christian Cage came out and said, I'm cashing in my opportunity right now during this match, then all the patriarchy came out, then I would have really didn't like it. But,
I would have been.
Well, I know you would have. You would have been like dancing.
If Christian left that pay-per-view as the world champion, I don't know what I would have done. I would have been so excited. But I get what you're saying. That, anyways, this ended. Heyman came and he left. The match continued.
Yes, and so and also it was like one tiny part of the match. It wasn't the whole match, and people weren't talking about it at the end of the match. Like the central focus was Danielson is not retiring. He is the champion, and he's going to wrestle just a little bit longer. That's what everybody's been saying. The focus of it afterwards wasn't, oh my God, Dominic Mysterio just turned on Rhea Ripley and is now with Liv Morgan. It's and that was the whole thing of the match. Nobody's talking about the match. Everybody's talking about the match with Danielson and Swerve. And again, I thought this was tremendous. I thought the inclusion of the family there was great, emotional storytelling. And I thought that the way that it built up to finally Swerve tapping, the big pop at the end, it was tremendous. And obviously bringing in Final Countdown for the entrance and the crowd singing along, and then getting the family in the ring, and Buddy going to business for himself, trying to pick up some streamers and whatnot in the ring was great. I enjoyed it.
His kid going to business for himself.
That's right. I mean, wasn't he doing that? He's like, here, run, come on. He's like, no, there's streamers in here. Like, and I don't blame him. Like, if I'm 4 and I see these shiny like streamers in the ring, I'm gonna go after the streamers. I don't blame you. I don't care if 50,000 people are looking at me. I want those streamers. This was great. This was easily the best match of the show for me. And I thought it was a really well done way to end the show, and kind of put a bow on this. And I am very much looking forward to the future matches now with Danielson as champion, and some of the different matches we could get out of this. We could get a Swerve rematch. We could potentially get Ospreay back in the mix. Obviously, we're going to get something to do with Christian Cage in the future, which I know you'll be like hooting and hollering. Can't not wait for that for you. But it opens up a bunch of different match types, and I think this will be a really fun little title reign. And this was great. I really enjoyed this.
And I think, and same with me. I thought it was the right thing. I was worried about too many big Wembley moments for everybody. But Ospreay got his, and Danielson got his, and there were a couple other moments throughout the show that people got theirs, but these were the big two. And I think as I'm looking at the whole show, I really get excited for these shows. I thought there were some matches that I didn't love. It wasn't like every single match was like a 5-star, 4.5-star match. So I was disappointed by some, but I think in the totality of this pay-per-view, when I look back to what the big three were for me, it was Danielson and Swerve, and I love the fact that there were some questions as to who was going to win the main event. I love the fact that the main event was the best match on the card, and I love the fact that the people were into the main event 4 hours in as much as they were into anything on the card. I think that that says so much about where the company's going, instead of somehow somebody defending the AEW World Championship in the first match at a lesser pay-per-view in Seattle. Like, come on. Like this is what main events should be.
Yep.
Lead up, don't know exactly who's going to win, don't know exactly what's going to happen. Tremendous involvement from everybody and captivating television. And so I look at the totality of this pay-per-view and I go, I can still lead people. If you're a wrestling fan, I can say, watch Danielson and Swerve. It was incredible. You can always watch Ospreay and MJF, and there's just so much emotion and so many good things that happened in that match. And for me, the Gauntlet match was the best one that I've seen. And not that it would ever be the best match on the card, but that if you're going to do a Gauntlet match, this is exactly how you do it. And I would put those three and say, there are a couple other good things. There were some not so good things, but this card, when it's top heavy like that, we bookended the preview show with MJF and Ospreay and Danielson and Swerve, because those are the two matches that everyone thought were the best two matches. And when you leave a pay-per-view afterwards saying those were the best two matches, you've done yourself well. Now it's up to the undercard to sort of in the middle, the mushy middle, to make sure that they keep up. And I think at some points we got some complaints about some of the people not doing that, and then other people like the Gauntlet match being incredible. But the most important parts of this were the fact that the big matches were the big matches. And I love that. And I give AEW a lot of credit for this.
Yep.
I would give this out of 10. I would give this an 8 out of 10.
Wow. There you go.
On the card, I could be talked into about 8.5, but when I start getting into the 9s and stuff, most of the card needs to be great, and there were some things that weren't great. But man, those three matches, I would go back and show any wrestling fan and say this is kind of how you do it.
Yeah.
And so
I was hovering between a 7 and a 7.5.
Okay. Well, lean to the 7.5 because you're a negative guy. So just give some more positivity to it.
Okay. I'll lean more towards 7.5. How about a 7.25 just to meet in the middle?
That sounds like a Meltzer. Like I'm smarter than everybody else, so I know what a 0.25 means. And I can tell you the difference between a 0.25 and a 0.5. So good for you. 7.25. I'm not going to take it away. It's your pick. You think you're smarter than everybody else, so that's awesome.
I liked the show. I did like the show. I as you mentioned, those top three matches were very, very good, and that really kind of drives up a lot of the score. Where I'm lower on it is where a lot of the matches, I think it's going to depend on where Mariah May and Toni Storm hits for other people, because I have seen big praise for that match. So I'm lower on it. Obviously, just so we're clear, I didn't think it was a bad match. I thought it was a fine match. I didn't think it was this tremendous match that people made it out to be, personally, for all the things I kind of laid out. So that's why I'm kind of a little bit lower on the show. Do I think this is AEW's best pay-per-view of the year? I don't. I thought the Revolution pay-per-view that they had earlier this year with Sting's retirement is their best show this year still. With Dynasty probably after that, then this. But I still enjoyed the show. If I could take this main event with last year's undercard, I think I would absolutely love this show. But with what we got here, I thought this was a fun stadium show. And looking through, we had some cool little moments as well. And I thought the matches ranged from, you had the one not so great match with Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker. But other than that, they range from fine to excellent. So overall, I gave it a 7.25.
7.25 from Zach. And folks, that's the best you'll ever hear, Zach, a show. So just mark it down on your calendar. So what we got coming up is, I think, a lot of exciting. I always love the after WrestleMania Raw and SmackDowns, and I love, after All In, what we're going to see on Dynamite coming up on Wednesday. I think will be very intriguing for a lot of people, and we'll talk later in the next show about the possibilities of that. And then, of course, Bash at Berlin,
yes,
coming up in Germany. I know you're very excited about Gunther eating schnitzel.
Yes, riveting. Can't wait.
Yeah, I know. I figured you'd be excited, but we got all that coming up. It's been a fantastic review, fantastic show, Zach. I always love the time, and this is, to me, when you're breaking down shows and you're kind of arguing between 7s and 8s and good matches, like it's a good thing. I feel like I left the pay-per-view yesterday feeling kind of pumped up about where AEW is going again, before I'm sure it'll get ruined on Wednesday or something else. But I'm more involved in the product because of the pay-per-view. So I think that's a good thing. Yeah. I think there are some really good moments. So we'll talk about what it all means coming up in future editions, but always good to catch up with you, my friends.
Yeah, this is I always enjoy reviewing these kind of big shows. It's obviously big for wrestling when you have big shows like this from any promotion, whether it be WWE or AEW. So it was fun to break this down and kind of get our thoughts out there. And with the pending announcement of this new TV deal as well for AEW, I think there's some positive momentum to be had for this company, and where the next steps could be. So I think there is stuff to look forward to. I am interested to see where this title reign goes for Bryan Danielson and some of the other feuds that have come out of the pay-per-view.
For Zach McGibbon, I'm Lee Versage. Thanks for listening to the All In recap on This Is Wrestling.